So I want to start by saying hello, London. What a wonderful city, as you've already heard. And I think I've got the best job in the world now. I thought being chair of council was fantastic, but actually having the role I've got with NHS London combines my two greatest passions, which is London and general practice. So thank you very much. You've heard, and you will discuss throughout today, that tweaking at the edges isn't an option. We do need to transform primary care for some of the reasons you've heard, but also for some of the reasons that I'm going to talk about. And actually, the time is ripe now. You all, like myself, are struggling in your day-to-day jobs, but actually what we've got now is an open door. 3 years and longer of lobbying, of going up to ministers' offices, of writing and lobbying through the national press, of saying it as it is, has finally got people realising that general practice cannot continue to deliver the standard of care that we want to deliver, but of course the standard of care that our patients want to receive, unless we get more resource. We hear continuously there is no money. But clearly there is money, because there's money to bail out the emergency department during the winter pressures. There's money that the Prime Minister has found to set up innovative solutions to general practice. And there's money for all sorts of other things. And there's money to build new hospitals and redesign services within hospitals. So there is resource. It's just a matter of us working together as groups of GPs, and whether you want to call those networks, federations, clubs, I don't care, but groups of GPs together, so that we can then work with our foundation trusts and our non-FTs on an equal basis to start delivering the care that I said our patients want. First though, and if there's anything you do today and anything you take away, you have to raise your self-esteem and celebrate what you do, and what you do 1 million times a day. And I think we forget that. We are not an elastic workforce. We cannot work the hours, 11 hours, we know half of you are working already, and then be expected to work in the emergency department alongside. We cannot deliver safe care if we're working those hours. But nevertheless, we've continued to deliver the most amazing care to patients, despite the fact that I suspect if I gave some of you PHQs, you would score positive on them. So celebrate what we do. We manage complex comorbidity. We do not manage single diseases. And please, and I've been saying this for years, patients don't follow care pathways, certainly not the patients we see. They might for those at the end of their life or if they're pregnant. But on the whole, the hypertensive patient that Mike talked about will now also have diabetes, may well have dementia, may well have an unhappy marriage, may well live in poor housing, which we manage within a 10-minute consultation, and celebrate that. And when you are talking to your commissioners and they want to compartmentalise all of our patients into disease packages, you tell them the last time you saw somebody with just diabetes was probably 50 years ago. We manage uncertainty, we manage risk, and we put the patient in the context of their families, and we provide continuity when we can. And when you hear the integrated word, the I word, just challenge who's saying it, and I say this, is if we resourced GPs, so if we had more of us able to spend longer with our patients and our communities, could we deliver the same that we're expected to deliver with service redesign? So we hear the pain that GPs are going through, and I think for the first time politicians are actually hearing that pain. But I want to look back to my predecessor, not Steve Field, but Annis Gilley, who was the first female chair of the Royal College of GPs. And she held a major commission in the 60s, when general practice then was at its knees. Do you remember? Probably not. But it was at its knees, and it was not delivering the sort of care that we were saying we were delivering. And she said, not quite quote, but you can go and read the paper. She said there were three great pressures facing the NHS, and this was 1963-64. An ageing population, increased technology, and rising expectations. And her solution, ladies and gentlemen, and I use modern words now, so you'll have to read the report, but I promise you this is what she said. She talks about integrating care. She talks about creating community hospitals and networks of GPs working together across geographical areas. She talked about GPs becoming more expert physicians, and she talked about the development of GPs with special clinical interest. That was back in the mid-60s, so there are only a few ways of skinning a cat. But as I started by saying, tweaking at the edges is not an option. We have done well for 65 years, but now things have changed. Our patients have changed. Yes, they're older, but they've changed in many other ways. They've actually become fitter. They've become more mobile. They've become more technology savvy. Even my mother, when I was putting her on Twitter this weekend at the age of 84. They live alone. Some areas, of course, they don't, but the vast majority of our patients do not live with their nuclear families. And our patients, just like in the 1960s, now do demand more. And when we ask our patients what we want, what they want, and we, I think, is a Freudian slip because we are all patients, what they want is better access, and quite right. If we don't provide access, how on earth can we find out what's wrong with them? They want, and they may not say it such as this, but they want less fragmented care. They want better continuity. And again, they may not quite say it like this, but they want to remain fitter for longer. So at NHS London, we've created some standards which will be published soon for consultation against all of those. And those standards will actually not be a surprise to many of you, but can actually only be delivered now by working together, and can only be delivered by us embracing new technology, by us starting to use e-health, starting to use data to risk stratify our patients, starting to work better in teams, whether that's teams within our own practice or actually teams outside the practice, hospital practitioners, ourselves, working on delivering care in different ways. It's actually also going to mean different ways of using our practices, our spaces. I'm not going to call it Darzi clinics, that was a long while ago, but actually I think there was some mileage in looking at co-locating, as Anis Gillies said way back in the 60s, primary, community, social care on single sites. And there certainly is across London, that's what's happening. And finally, and you picked it up from Mike, we now have to grasp the nettle of those of our profession who are not delivering care to the standard that we want and our patients expect. And for all too long, we've denied that and let our colleagues get on with it. We now have to bring them together. So my message for you for the rest of today is, though we are on our knees, this is cyclical. The 1960s, the 1990s when I started in general practice, and now. And at each time when we were on our knees, great things happened. The great thing in the 60s was the creation of the health centres. The great thing in the 90s was the Tomlinson Review and the Lizzie I work, and those of you old enough as I am will remember what that brought, but it certainly brought significant improvements. And today, the great thing that will happen is us working together as groups of practices and making it history of us working together within our individual silos. So I wish you luck for the rest of the day. As I said, I've got PHQs on me, but I'm sure they'll improve as the day progresses. Thank you very much.